Republican Congressman from Illinois, Adam Kinzinger, is joining us right now. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. The bill passed overwhelmingly in the House yesterday. 26 of your fellow Republicans voted with the Democrats to approve the Postal Service funding $25 billion that the Post Office itself says it needs to continue working effectively. You voted against it. Why?
So I think, look, right now the Post Office has about a $12 billion operating surplus. Once that goes below $8 billion, they have $10 billion available through the CARES Act that they can access. And I think at that point, when we see that we're kind of going towards the red, then it's appropriate to come forward. What we did yesterday, quite honestly, was just Nancy Pelosi taking an issue that actually works well for the Democrats. I'll give it to them. They've played it well, and just throwing money at it. I think we have to do the right thing at the right time, not just playing politics with it. We need to do a broader CARES package again, shoring up things like PPP, the unemployment checks, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to the needing to get it done, we'll go get it done. But I think yesterday just passing a $25 billion and then using it as a talking point, it just wasn't the right way to govern. We've gotten used to spending a ton of money lately. I don't think that's ever an excuse to just go spend a ton of money. We still have to be responsible to the next generation.
Are you with Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, former Republican congressman, who says they would go along with $10 billion for the Post Office, but once again, only if it was part of a broader package? The Post Office itself, they said earlier this year they really need $25 billion.
Yeah, well, look, I think, you know, if there was a standalone bill of $10 billion and it was needed now, I'd absolutely vote for it. If the $25 billion was absolutely needed now, I'd vote for it. What I don't want to do is right now, when they do have an operating surplus and they have $10 billion available to them, when their surplus drops below $8 billion, it's not the time. I'd love to do a broader package. If we can't get there in the negotiations, because everything is political nowadays, then I'd absolutely vote for a standalone bill. But we've got to do it at the right time. You know, just go in and I think throwing money and then just going back to your districts to say you did it, that has real implications in the future. I support the Post Office huge. It's in the Constitution, in fact, but it also needs to do some reforms as well.
There's a new CBS News YouGov poll that just came out that found 57% of Republicans say the number of U.S. deaths from coronavirus has been acceptable compared to 10% of Democrats. We have, getting closer and closer to 180,000 Americans dead from coronavirus, far more than any other developed nation. Why does the majority of the Republican Party right now seem to think that that's acceptable?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I certainly would say it's unacceptable. Of course, when we started this pandemic, the discussion was that there were going to be 2 or 3 million dead. So, you know, this is, I guess, a terrible thing. It's not 2 and 3 million. And I think we need to do everything we can to continue to mitigate those deaths. I don't know how the question was asked, but I can tell you I certainly would be in the 30-some% that say it's unacceptable. There's a lot we have to do, a lot in therapeutics, a lot in the vaccine, and we have to do our part to distance and wear masks so that we can get through this. We will get through it, and we'll be able to look back and say not only did we learn some, we saved a lot of lives by taking those actions as well.
Yeah, the University of Washington, the medical school, they estimate that if things go on the way they are right now, more than 300,000 Americans will have died from coronavirus by December 1st. That's not too far away, so something clearly has to be done. Let's turn to another sensitive issue, and you've been outspoken to your credit on this. We're talking about the QAnon conspiracy theory, which the FBI says is a potential domestic terror threat. A week ago, you called on Republican leaders, including the president, to denounce QAnon. Since then, the president actually welcomed support from the QAnon followers. What's your reaction to that?
It's disappointing. I mean, look, here's the danger in QAnon. It's not necessarily that there's going to be some attacks or anything. What happens, though, you're always going to have conspiracy theories on the web. You can't do anything about that. And most of the time, you don't want to bring attention to it. But this has started to kind of creep into the mainstream. And what QAnon does is it undermines people's faith in the very basics of representative democracy, because they believe there's this, you know, Satan-worshiping pedophile cabal that's actually running government. If you believe that, then you start to think that your vote doesn't count, doesn't matter, and everybody wants to be heard, and that's when you cycle to the point of violence. And I think it's incumbent on members of their own party to denounce conspiracy theories in their own party, because if I denounce some theory on the left, they're not going to listen. If the left denounces some theory on the right, they're not going to listen. We have to protect basically the integrity of our party and that kind of stuff. And so, you know, to the leaders in the party's credit, they've started to come out on this. I just think everybody needs to and make it clear that this is very much a ludicrous theory.
Yeah, we were showing our viewers some video of some conspiracy supporters out in Hollywood making their case about this huge plot, which of course doesn't exist. Congressman Kinzinger, as usual, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for all your important work.
You bet, Wolf.